Hello, everybody. Hey, Amber. Hey, Lori. Hey, Bryn. Hello, Brittany. Hello, Trenda.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Akasha. Hey, MK. We have finally made it. The long-awaited JonBonét Ramsey episode 1. Hey, Miss Chronicles. How is everyone tonight? Hey, Sandy. So, I'm a little bit confused how this is actually going to pop up because we're streaming to both Trenda's and mine. So, when I see the names, I'll be honest, I'm not sure like whose chat they're in. Doesn't really matter, but like I'm just curious like how you know the difference.
I'm not sure if you can tell.
Not sure cuz like when I'm on Facebook, like when I stream to Facebook also, you can't really tell. The names are just the names. But it doesn't really matter, I guess. Oh, Lori, I asked my friend who had a blind date with Burke to come on panel. She said, hell no. I don't want people to know I had a blind date with that freak. Oh, no. Hey, Nakavad, so did you guys know Lori's friend actually went on a blind date with Burke?
Oh my God. Like his facial expressions and his mannerism just on Dr. Phil alone, that would probably freak me out. I don't think I could have sat at the table with him.
And he said, Lori explained it like as soon as they got there, like how did he say it, Lori? He said like you know what happened to my sister, right? Or something along those lines. Like, right, Lori? And I don't know what that means, MK. Like, Brittany dropped off already. Everybody take a shot. You're on your fridge. Like, that's crazy. Hey, Steph. Oh, that's nice, my Chronicles. That's awesome. I didn't know you could take a shot. I didn't know you could stream from your fridge, to be honest. Hey, Cotton Candy. Oh, never. Hey, Nicole. What are you confused about? Jeez, Britt, I'm already getting drunk.
My cat jumped on my shoulder. Just keep going.
Okay. Yep, those taking shots are going to be shit-faced by the end. That is true. Okay.
But I went on Alicia's panel today and I didn't throw myself off one time. I'm not even kidding.
What'd you
It's
say, Britt?
crazy. I was on Alicia's panel earlier and I didn't throw myself off once.
Wow.
Not even once.
So it's just me.
I guess so. I'm going to try to do better.
I'm trying to fix that audio thing that it does. I don't know why it's so low. My friend never knew about JonBonét. Your LG smart dishwasher streams better. Well, don't rub it on all our faces. I don't even have a dishwasher, let alone a smart one that streams YouTube.
I have a dishwasher, but it's definitely not a smart one.
Right? Like, like, what? Hey, Rose Gold. Oh, Rose Gold, what a beautiful new picture.
Oh, it is good. I have a broken dishwasher, if that counts.
Okay. So, basically, you guys, episode 1, we're just going to do an overall breakdown of the case. Obviously, the timeline of events, what played out from beginning to end. And then as we progress into episode 2, we're going to go do little deep dives. We could do the deep dive into the party that the Ramseys were at on the 24th before they arrived home, into the morning of with the 911 call, into the ransom note, into the DNA, into Linda Arndt's testimony, and then the suspects, and then the grand jury. So we're going to break it down episode by episode, but just for today, we're just going to do an overall view of the case and the timeline in which it took place. Oh, the dishwashing aspect broke. It's just used to stream. Hey Dylan, I'm really confused, MK, but like I feel like I'm better off just not asking any more questions. I have a KitchenAid dishwasher that's super quiet. That's smart enough for me. Okay, so I guess we'll just get right into it, right?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So, obviously, everyone who's familiar with this case knows that JonBonét was found deceased at 6 years old on the morning of Christmas. Well, it was more the afternoon, in her home in Colorado. JonBonét was one of two siblings, her older brother, Burke, her mother, Patsy, and her father, John. And JonBonét's mother had her in a lot of pageants. That was something that Patsy did growing up. And so she really pushed her daughter to get into that stuff. And that's one thing that I'm sure many of us remember about JonBonét when you saw her in all of the headlines, all over the tabloids. She was dressed to the nines in all these outfits with these hair done, this makeup done. Is that how you girls remember her?
Oh, well,
Yes.
see, I was only so fun fact, I was only 11 months old when she was killed. Um, so basically I remember like growing up hearing about the case, but I was so young, like I don't remember like that aspect of it. But I lived in Wyoming, which is so close, right next to Colorado. And so I remember back in like 2000 when it was still like really big in the headlines especially when like a new suspect or when they found someone and he was deemed a new suspect and it was really big all over again and my parents would be sitting there talking about it. That's how I remember it.
I'm actually JonBonét's exact age. So if she was still alive, we'd be the same age. So granted, I was young, but I remember vividly being in the supermarket with my mom. And that was back when at the checkout aisle, they'd always have all the magazines right there. And I remember seeing that girl's face and wondering why she looked so different. Like not every little girl looked like that. And I think I'll be able to pull up some of her pageant pictures so anyone who isn't familiar can get an idea. Just bear with me while I do this. My mom let me borrow her little access thing. I don't know like what else to call it. That's what it says on it. So I think I'm going to be able to share my screen. So give me a moment. You girls could just continue talking if you'd like while I pull up some pictures.
What is that, Mel? Like a tablet?
It's like, when I say it's like this itty bitty, very old, it's a Chrome
Oh, get down. Ow.
Asus. That's what it says on it. It's like the most
Oh,
miniature little laptop I've seen.
oh wow.
But it's too old to like, I can't like stream on it, but I think I'll be like, I was able to turn on subscribers only mode for this. And I think I'll be able to share my screen. It's probably going to take really slow, but like I could do it. So at least it'll work for like the next few days. I'm going to bring it back to her on Christmas.
Well,
Maybe it won't
okay.
work. Okay,
So
hold on.
I really didn't know like where to start with writing stuff down because I've never deep dived into this one, so this is going to be kind of a learning experience for me too. As we go along. But I actually, because I know, the growing up, I heard a lot of rumors such as like her being in the beauty pageants could have played like a really big part in her murder. So I actually wrote down some key events for like prior to the murder. Um, so at the beginning of December, there was a parade. It was called the Lights of December Parade. So that happened December 6th. JonBonét appeared on her own Little Miss Colorado float during the parade. It was actually at Boulder Mall, and Burke was also in the parade. So it was kind of, both of them were able to be in it. And then on December 13th, there was a church party in the Ramsey home, and JonBonét won Little Miss Christmas. She also won Santa Bear in a Denver area pageant. Excuse me. So,
and the Ramseys, that's also another thing that could have potentially come into play. So the Ramseys hosted these Christmas walkthroughs where basically the Ramseys household was dressed to the nines in Christmas decorations. This was a very well-off family. They were very well known within the community. Every room had a Christmas tree. JonBonét's room had a Christmas tree. And all the ornaments, and I'm not just talking about outside, I'm talking about inside. And they would do a tour where all these strangers from the community would go into their house and take a tour of all the decorations. And that was a big, could this have come into play? Could someone have been taking a look around the house, looking at the entry points? There were even theories, did someone come in and stay in from that point forward? So go on, Shonda.
So,
Is this gonna work?
that's actually the only two key events that they had listed.
Mm-hmm.
So from the sounds of it, Christmas morning started off like any other morning in the household. The family woke up, opened Christmas gifts. They had their traditional morning breakfast. The kids spent the afternoon playing with their gifts. And then that evening, it was actually around 4:00 was when the family went to see their, they had a Christmas party at the White residence.
Mm-hmm.
After the party, the family delivered the gifts to the Stein family, and JonBonét and Burke actually fell asleep in the vehicle. They arrived home sometime around between 8 and 9 p.m.
And there was a whole big thing that came into play. They stopped at a friend's house along the way. And it's big speculation whether or not JonBonét was awake or asleep. Because as you're going to hear later on, that their testimony was JonBonét fell asleep during that car ride home. But it contradicts what was seen, because JonBonét was apparently awake when they went to go they were dropping presents off at a friend's house. When they went to go drop those presents off, she was allegedly awake. So you're going to see many contradictions in their timeline.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. And another thing that I've really noticed that made trying to write out not necessarily the timeline, but kind of the key events that happened, it made it really difficult because not only is there a lot of contradictions, but me personally, and I know it's different for a lot of people, but when I'm trying to write out kind of, my list, I really like to have, timestamps of, when certain things happen. So that way, when I'm trying to talk about it, I can, it kind of plays out in my mind, kind of like my own little visual going on. And so that was really frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. A lot of it, listen, as if the details from what happened from the moment the police were called on weren't confusing enough, the before and afters, the Whites party. And the Whites party, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to share my screen, you guys. Every time I try to do it, it just crashes. I'm sorry. I was trying. The Whites party is going to come majorly into play later on in this timeline when we break down into the crime scene and DNA which was found, because they're trying to account for male DNA, which basically should not have been there. But okay, yeah, it's very, very confusing, and the timeline and the testimony contradicts itself and doesn't make sense. So yeah, it's not your fault that you're not finding a direct answer. There is no direct answer.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, even listening to, I know we'll get into this a little bit more in later lives, but even when I was listening to the interviews and the interrogations they did with the family members,
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't even recall, you know, certain events. It was, well, I can't recall.
Right.
That was probably the biggest pet peeve throughout the entire ordeal was, oh, I don't recall or I can't recall.
Oh, yeah, it was always convenient. It was always when it was convenient for them to say that too. But I can't believe it's been 25 years. Has it really been that long?
Yes.
I seen
25th
Lloyd.
anniversary.
Wow.
Burke's interview
Wow.
with Dr. Phil was the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, I actually remember the night that it broke. Like, I was really young, like really, really young, but I remember it all over the news.
Right.
That was, yeah, that was crazy.
But so, like Melissa said, so we don't know for sure if JonBonét and Burke fell asleep in the vehicle, but it said that they arrived home sometime between 8 and 9 p.m. and around 10:30, Patsy went upstairs to pack and John went to bed.
They were supposed to be leaving for a trip the next day.
And after 10:30, when Patsy went up, or when they went upstairs and they went to bed, that's where it gets really muddy on how things played out.
Right. So John's testimony is JonBonét fell asleep in the car. JonBonét and Burke both fell asleep in that car ride home. And that John carried JonBonét directly into bed and put her to sleep. And he proceeded to play games with Burke.
And then Burke eventually got hungry, and a bowl of pineapple and milk was prepared for him with a glass of hot tea.
Which that bowl of pineapple and milk, God, who would have thought that bowl of pineapple and milk would be the center of such controversy within a murder case? Just curious, has anyone ever had pineapple with milk? Is this a common thing?
I was about to ask that. I've never heard of that.
Never.
Ever.
Never.
See, I haven't either.
All the while, JonBonét was allegedly asleep. Okay, again, John claimed he carried JonBonét straight up to her room. They took the spiral staircase, and she was asleep for the remainder of the night. You're going to need to know that. Yes, Susie. So Patsy wakes up a little after 5 a.m. She went down to make herself coffee. Again, they were supposed to leave for a trip that day. And as she walks down the stairs, at the bottom of the stairs, and these aren't the primary stairs in their house. These were like the secondary stairs, which, okay, may not seem like a big deal, but like it's not the main staircase. It's a back staircase, basically. And laying at the bottom of this stairs is a 3.5-page ransom note. Yes, a 3.5-page ransom note. From Patsy's testimony, she said she didn't even start to read it before she panicked and started screaming for JonBonét. She frantically went around the house, went up to her room, and then proceeded to get John. At that point, they realized JonBonét was not in her room, and they proceeded to call 911. And I wish I could get that 911 audio up for you guys right now, but we're gonna have to take it up with the first, like, episode 2 when we start to do the breakdown. I'll figure it out by then. But on the 911
Honestly,
audio,
I
sorry, go
wish
ahead,
I
Taylor.
would have known. Sorry, I wish I would have known you wanted to play it, because then I would have just gotten on my computer.
I mean, I might be able to play it through my through the phone right now, but it's gonna be like I'm playing it on another device, so it's not gonna sound that clear. But it's not a big deal because like on episode 2, like we need to break down that 911 call. But basically on that 911 call, Patsy is calling and she is frantic. All over the place, emotion is high. Someone kidnapped my daughter. Someone kidnapped my daughter. Ma'am, calm down. What's going on? I don't know. I just woke up and there's a ransom note. There's a ransom note. My daughter is missing. My daughter is missing. Okay. And John is in the background. You could tell Patsy is talking to John while talking to the operator. And Patsy proceeds to hang up, or so she believes she hung up. But the phone never fully disconnects because back in that day, we had like house phones, right? Have you ever put that house phone down and it never actually clicked that hang up button? Well, that's what happened. And the 911 audio kept recording. Now, later on in the testimony, they claim Burke was asleep and that they had not woken Burke up yet. Patsy actually claimed that she didn't even check on Burke when you found this 3.5-page ransom note and your daughter is missing and you didn't even go up to check your son. But that is what their testimony was. She hangs up the phone, and like I said, at first she was in a frenzy. She's, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Inconsolable. The operator could not even get a straight answer from her. But the moment she clicks that phone and believes it's to be disconnected, she very calmly starts to have a conversation with John. Just emotions all of a sudden went from 100 to 0. But the problem is there was a third voice detected. Granted, there was 3 people in the house that day, but only 2 of them were supposed to be awake, according to their testimony, which was Patsy and John. The third audio picked up. It is so grainy, but they are able to prove that it is a higher pitched audio and it is very faint. It's up to skeptics to decide what exactly it's saying. And as we get into episode 2, we could go down the theories. They pretty much have it nailed down to one probable theory of what he's saying. But it is what appears to be a child's voice. May not seem like a big deal now, but if you are talking about the murder of your daughter, okay? Something like, was Burke awake or was Burke asleep at this time? Makes all the difference. Because if you're caught in one lie, everything else you're saying now is open to be scrutinized. Well, what else are you lying about? So there was a third voice picked up. And again, when we go through that 911 audio, she goes from frantic to screaming to just calm. You know, let me try to get it, because like hearing me say it and then hearing it for yourself is 2 different things. It's probably not going to be the best quality, but when we get into episode 2, we'll make sure to do it the right way. So hold on, let me see. Oh, exactly, Shauna. Okay, let's see. I'll let it play once through. It's a minute and 41 seconds. And then I'll play it again and I'll pause and I'll read out to you what she's saying because it's going to be hard to hear. By the way, it was 5:52 a.m. when Patsy Ramsey called 911 from a wall phone in her kitchen to report her daughter was missing.
There's a ransom note here. It's a ransom note. It says FBTC. Victory. Please. Okay, what's your name? Are you Ramsey? I'm the mother. Oh my God. Please. Okay, I'm sending it off the phone, okay? Do you know how long she's been gone? No, I don't. Please, we just got out. Is she right here? Oh my God, please. Okay, call somebody. I am, honey. Please. Take a deep breath. Please, okay. Hurry. Patsy.
Okay. So I'm going to go through that again with you guys, but I'm going to stop and I'm going to read. Hold on, let me see. I'm going to read to you what she's saying as we go through it, okay? So she was standing only feet away from where the ransom note had been found at the top of the stairwell leading to the basement where JonBonét's body was discovered 8 hours later. Okay. Patsy says police. She's saying her address. We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please. And again, you guys have to get into this mind frame of she had just woken up. She had just put her kids to bed the night before. It was only a couple of hours later. They got home late. She walked down the stairs. There's a 3.5-page ransom note. She claims she did not even read it. She started to skim the first couple of lines and then bolted. And then they proceeded to call 911. So there's a note left, and our daughter's gone.
How old is your daughter?
She's 6 years old. She's blonde. 6 years old. I don't know how long ago it was. I just got the note, and my daughter's gone. Does it say who took her? And Patsy says, no, I don't know. There's a ransom note here. It says SBTC Victory. And we'll get into that later. Patsy Ramsey, I'm the mother. Oh my God, please. So she says, no, I don't know how long she's been gone. Please, we just got up and she's not here. Oh my God, please.
Please. Okay, I am, honey. Take a deep breath. Okay. Patsy.
And that's when Patsy abruptly hangs up. And you guys aren't going to be able to hear the audio that's picked up really finely because I'm playing it from a different device. But we're going to get into that, the enhanced audio, in episode 2. And that's when you'll be able to hear what they're saying in the background once she believes the phone is hung up. It sounds like Patsy's saying, help me, Jesus. And at this point, she thinks the phone is hung up. Okay. So what do you girls think about that?
Well, she sounds like she's frantic. She definitely sounds frantic, but I don't know. I've always had weird thoughts about it because John is very successful. Like, he works up there with, some head honchos or whatever. So my thoughts on her panic is, to me, is a little off. Like, to me, I would think that somebody in that type of position who has the power that they wield or whatever would be more like, listen, you don't know who my husband is. It would be more mad. She would be more angry than she would upset. But that's just my opinion, more entitled. She sounds more desperate, and honestly, to me, it kind of sounds fake. But that's just my opinion.
Okay. What do you think, Chanda?
Yeah, that one's a really tough one, just because, I mean, it's from on one hand, it's, she sounds panicked, she sounds frightened, like she's inconsolable, she's really upset. So, being a mom myself, that's probably how I would react as well. But kind of like Britt said, on the other hand, it does sound really, like, kind of forced, I guess.
Yeah, like she keeps
Especially,
repeating herself over and over and over,
Mm-hmm.
not answering any
especially
questions.
when you go through the enhanced audio in episode 2 and you are able to hear, because we can't do it like a phone to phone, like when you hear after she thinks she's hung up and you could hear her talking, you could hear John talking, and then you could hear a third voice. Okay.
Yeah.
And it went from, oh my God, to da 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 da, like this is how they're
Yeah.
talking, like da da da.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't go from that to, if my kid was missing, not only would I throw that phone, but I'd be screaming my fucking bloody lungs out.
Yes.
Even if I knew she
Exactly.
wasn't there, I'd be screaming for her,
Absolutely. And if they were to ask me a question, I'm going to give you my kid's full name, their birthday. I'm going to give you every single thing that I can. And then, like I said, the power that they wield. These people are used to having everything. Butlers, nannies, they don't have to wait on a table. I'm sure we'll go over who John works for in the future and stuff. She would, in my opinion, be saying, I'm going to have your jobs if these cops aren't here within a minute or two of me being on this phone call, because I don't know, that's just the way that I imagine she would be, but everybody reacts their own way. So
Well,
I don't
and they
know.
were very well high up in the community, in society. They were very well known. Again, they just had the entire community in their house. They had the newspaper there. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
had a good standing in their community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll go through that, Dylan. So let's get into the ransom note a little bit. And again, you guys, we're not diving deep into anything specific. We're just going through it. But I think it's very important to read the bizarre ransom note which was left. So do either of you girls want to read it? Do you want me to read it? It's up to you.
I'll go ahead and let you read it just because I'd prefer to listen just to see what stands out because there's always something new that stands out when I'm hearing it read compared to reading it. So,
all right. So bear with me, guys, because it's very sloppy handwriting and stuff like that. So it says, Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We don't respect your business, but not the country that it serves. For this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and untouched. And if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. I'm sorry, you guys. It's really hard to read this. Can someone get rid of Lovelace? Actually, I could do it. I know, Rose Gold. Oh. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. That's going to come into play as we get much more into this. That number, $118,000. $100,000 will be in $100 bills and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché. Yes, an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money. Oh, God, it's so hard to read. And, man. And something pick of your daughter, like an earlier pickup of your daughter, but I can't read the exact words. Any deviation of my instructions will lead in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter don't particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is only way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any is found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but we warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and techniques. You start at 99%. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only something at drained, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory, SBTC. Okay. Sorry, that was really hard to read. It's like really difficult. It's like really scribbled. So there are many, many, many things I've already picked up in that letter, in that ransom note, before I even think about all the things I know in hindsight now about the case. So is there anything that stood out to you two girls that's really like, that's strange?
Yeah. The small amount of money they asked for. Like,
Well,
that's
it's
all you
like just
want?
specific, like the specific.
Well, how about that number was the exact number bonus John received?
Yeah.
Yep.
That was mm-hmm.
Well,
The
and how would
exact number.
anybody well, okay, so the company would know, obviously, because they gave it to him. But how would anybody else besides someone, someone within the company or John or Patsy know exactly how much he received for a bonus?
Nobody would know that except the fucking person who does payroll.
Exactly.
Yep.
But not only that, I mean, you're going to put your whole entire self at risk to do a home invasion, kidnap a child from a very successful, well-known couple, and that's all you're going to ask for? I mean, obviously they know how much money they have.
Or how about we're not a fan of the country you serve? Like, it's not about your business, it's about the country you serve.
Right?
We represent a small foreign faction. We represent a small foreign faction, leading to believe that this was some type of organization.
Making it a point to say that it's foreign. It's not from here. That's weird to me.
Or the fact that this letter was written on Patsy's stationery.
And a pen within the house.
And the pen was in the house. And there was a practice note. So the first thing that stands out to me is the length. The length of this ransom note. Almost 3 pages. If you are an intruder and you are creeping through a house and you are committing a crime, not only did you not prepare a ransom note, not only did you have the calmness to be able to sit there and execute writing a ransom note of that length, you were able to practice. They began writing the note and then stopped and ripped a page out. Don't know where that page is, but it was started again. So that shows that there was no urgency. Why?
And
Why?
I'd hate to harp on the money again, but Brooke makes a good point. You're splitting the 118,000 3 different ways. So
at least it's a small foreign faction. At least there's 3 people that we know of, at least as per this ransom note. But this note is babbling. They were repeating things and saying things that you don't need to say. It was overthought. And that's going to tie into some of the theories that we get through, because if this was a handwritten note, okay? You aren't going to add any details, anything that could be a telltale sign that it's you. Handwriting in itself, it would be short and to the point. How many times have we seen the ransom notes where it's cut out of magazines? Be at this place 1 million 2 p.m. You know, like this is overly written for no reason.
Well, and not only that, but a lot of the verbiage used in the note was taken from several different movies.
Mm-hmm.
There
Oh, I
was,
forgot about that. You're right. It
Yep.
was.
I can't remember the name. I didn't write it down, but one of the movies that one of the lines was taken from was actually at a movie that was in theaters in Boulder, Colorado at that time.
That John did watch. That John did go and see in the movie theater.
Oh, really?
John was a big movie buff.
See, I'm learning stuff as we do this because I didn't know that. I had no idea that it was a movie John seen.
Oh yeah, John was a big movie buff, and there were things in that ransom note that were specifically taken out of movies, and particularly the one
figure.
movie that was in theaters this year. That year this happened.
Wow.
I don't know what, I can't post something without it. So it is odd. And
very odd.
I also thought was interesting. Hold on, let me find the part. Where they said she's going to be beheaded. Taking a kid and holding them for ransom is one thing, but the way they go into detail with, you would get, oh yeah, the movie was literally Ransom with Mel Gibson, came out November 8th, 1996.
No shit. Oh my God. Jeez.
Mm-hmm. Why did that come?
It's not funny,
I dropped
but
my
it's
membership
just
link and it came up on your channel too, which is really weird.
It's probably just because it's streaming to both.
That's crazy.
Probably.
So
Okay.
if you're over here on Melissa's channel, can you go show Trenda some love too and give her some thumbs up, please?
Thank you, Britt.
That's very true, Belle. And so, and the 3 sentences back to back to back. If you speak to authorities, she dies. If you go to the bank too early, she dies. You know, like if you speak to bank authorities, she dies. You know, like it was repetitive. It was not necessary. And again, that is a major detail. It's the fact that if you're going with this intruder theory, okay, that means someone broke into the house and felt comfortable enough to sit there, did not bring any supplies of their own, and that's going to come even more into play when we talk about the murder, okay? But no supplies of their own, sit there, found stationary, and they're just going on. Your heart would be racing. Your adrenaline would be pumping. It would be about getting in and getting out. But they have the time to sit there and write, if you do this, she dies. If you do that, she dies. If she does this, you would be like, be here this time with this money or she dies.
There's no way in hell. There's no way. There's no way you're going to go in there and do that. No one would.
Mm-mm-mm.
And then you're going to go through their house and you have to search for a notepad and a pen, which means you're going to make noise rummaging through the house. None of that makes sense.
And make sure to bring an adequate size attaché.
Okay, can you explain to me what that is?
An attaché is like a classy form of a bag that wraps around and hangs on your side.
Who talks like that?
With the little abbreviation like thing and everything. Something interesting, JonBonét's name itself has the little accent mark over her E, correct? Now, a fun fact about Patsy is she went to college for some type of writing, to where there are, and we'll get into this when we break down the note in episode 2, but exactly, Brooke. Attaché with the little accent over the E, the same in JonBonét's name. Oh, thank you so much, Sarah something. Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you so much. But yeah, it's like a briefcase side little bag thing, but not a common word, right? Such a particular, bring an adequate size attaché. What?
I'm ashamed to admit I followed this case for years and I never knew what that meant. I just went along with it.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
that's
yes,
interesting.
the handwriting was very, very unique, Dylan. And as we get, into details and farther along in the case, this ransom note is going to be a major piece in this case. And to either go against the intruder theory or try to figure out who at least wrote the note, which would lead to finding out what happened to JonBonét. But this was the alleged ransom note that was left at the bottom of the stairs that Patsy didn't even get to read beyond the first few lines, because it says, "We have your daughter." She said the moment she read, "We have your daughter," that's when she dropped it and ran up to go look for JonBonét. Now, you guys have to remember
never
that
checked on Bert.
Right.
Oh my God.
But that gets contradicted later on as we hear Burke's testimony and everything like that. But this was the holidays. So the cops do end up arriving, but there's not many people on shift whatsoever. It was a very nice community in Boulder, Colorado. And so it was Linda Arndt who arrives on scene. Everybody else was pretty much off for the holiday. And basically her job, at that point, they said that they looked through the entire house and there was nothing amiss. There was nothing wrong other than JonBonét was not in her bed. So basically, it was a wing game. But Patsy had invited all their friends over. So it was not just Patsy and John and Burke in the house. It was all of their friends. And Linda Arndt, and we'll go through her testimony also because it's on a video, explains that she was very, very overwhelmed. Okay. So they're sitting around, and like the ransom note said, they're going to call between this time, 10 to 12 p.m. And so you would think that they'd be sitting there watching the clock, freaking out, right? Every moment feels like eternity.
Yep.
Something strange Linda described was John walked out and got the mail and came back in and just starts going through the mail like it's any other day. And I really I can't wait to get into Linda Arndt's interview because she was there. She was there. She was in that house. She was the only person in that house. And she explains how at the time she wasn't thinking anything into this stuff. But she said she was just taking little mental notes, like, that's strange, or that's odd. But now looking hindsight, welcome, Sofa King. In hindsight, they're big things, and she thought it was very odd that John just goes to the mailbox and it's like he's going through bills.
Well, and you would think that, for one, let's just say that JonBonét was actually, kidnapped and wasn't in the home. Regardless of whether it was, just being treated as a kidnapping case, they still would not, if they would have been handling this case properly, and we'll get into kind of how the police handled it a little bit later. Sorry if my voice cuts out. but they should have treated the entire home as a crime scene. There should not have been friends or, anyone that did not live within the home allowed inside. But another odd things that was going on was Patsy and her friends were cleaning, wiping down counters, cleaning up the kitchen, kind of tidying things up. Who knows what, they could have, if someone did break into the home and they were wiping down the counters, there goes all that evidence.
The entire crime
Oh,
scene was contaminated, to say the
yeah.
least. And
Just them
Mhm.
allowing the friends inside the house was that was enough to destroy everything.
well, let's even put the crime scene to the side for a minute, right? Let's put the crime scene to the side for a minute. How about the fact that the ransom note specifically said, do not get the authorities involved or your daughter is beheaded. Beheaded. Do not call anyone. Do not alert anyone. Now, granted, it's not such a big deal that they called 911. That's not the part that, like, okay, what would you do? You can't criticize them for calling authorities. But then to call your friends and know that your driveway is packed with cars and there are people going in and out of that house, and you aren't
Exactly.
worried that that note told you your daughter would get beheaded and that you were being monitored, you were being surveilled. Not even any concern. You didn't just call the authority. After she hung up that 911, she immediately called friends.
That's a good point. And then there he is sifting through the mail after
Mhm.
Yeah.
they read a letter that their daughter's head's going to be chopped off. I'll be honest with you, and you never know how you would react in that moment. God forbid. But I might would be hesitant to call the authorities even. Just because just to get that mental image of something bad happening to your child. I would probably try to reach the person that's got my kid first.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
there would be
terrifying.
there would be hesitancy. But basically Linda explained that Patsy was in one room, had her friends around her. They were doing like prayer circles. And like I said, when we get into episode 2, and we'll really break down all the specifics of what happened that day, waiting, and we'll go through Linda Arndt's interview. So basically it was a waiting game, like we said. And they specifically said they would call between this time and this time. Linda explained that the time between when they were supposed to call came and left, and nobody in the house said anything. That's when her red flags really stood up. Because if your daughter was kidnapped and you were waiting on the call to handle a ransom to get your daughter back, and if they were supposed to call between 10 and 12, 10 and 2, whatever it may be, she said the time came and it passed and nobody even mentioned it. Don't you find that odd? Don't you think you'd be like, where the fuck
Yeah.
are they? Why haven't they called yet? Oh my God, what does this mean? Why haven't they called yet? They were supposed to call between this time and this time. Nope.
You would be
Yeah, I
hounding law enforcement, telling them, "Okay, we got an hour, and they're supposed to call." Be
Yep.
be circling around that phone.
I'd go straight into panic mode.
Heck yeah.
So unbelievably strange. So basically, everyone was getting uneasy. John and his friend came into the kitchen, and basically Linda, she was waiting for backup. She said that she was looking out that window and she was just waiting for some type of backup, but nobody was on duty really. Everyone was with their families. Hey V. And they didn't know how bad of a situation it was yet. Yes, it was a kidnapping at that point. Child missing with a ransom note. So after hours and hours and hours, after John checked his mail, after the time came and went, Linda says to John and his friend, all right, listen, to keep them occupied, this is how she said it. Do something, because you're just sitting around waiting, right?
Because
I
wasn't
want
it something about they were afraid he was going to get on a plane and go?
Wait, that's after.
Okay,
So,
all right.
yeah. So Linda says to John and his friend, I want you to search this house top to bottom. Top to bottom. And search. At that point, they were not searching for JonBonét. As far as they were led to believe, that house was searched and JonBonét was not there. And look for anything that may be awry. Look for anything that may be amiss. Something missing, something left behind. They just want you to search it again from top to bottom. And she said this would be a good way to keep them distracted and keep them busy. John and his friend then proceeded directly to the basement door and immediately went downstairs. And their floor plan was very strange. It was a maze, like someone said in the chat earlier. It really was a maze. The setup was very, very strange. There were multiple floors to this house. It was huge. So they went directly down into the basement. And through the basement, there's this back cellar area, which looks like a closet. Okay, this huge basement. It's all the way in the corner, just an additional little door into a little cellar room. John went directly down there with his friend without any hesitation, opened the door, and he let out a shriek. And his friend, and we'll go through his friend's testimony too, was the one who turned on the light switch, meaning John saw what he saw before even turning on the light. And it was JonBonét. And he picks her up, and Linda says she hears this screaming. And all of a sudden, she sees John walking up those basement steps with JonBonét in his arms. And she said he came in and she told him to put her down on the floor. So he puts her down on the floor. At this time, JonBonét is not in the best of condition. And Linda Arntz leans down and goes to JonBonét's face to check for breathing, to check for a pulse. And she realized that she was cold. She was cold. And she was like, John's face was this close to mine when I looked up at him. And he said, is she dead? And Linda explained, yeah, she's dead. And she said, and in that moment, I was wearing my gun holster tucked under my arm, and I tucked it closer to me, and I was consciously counting out how many rounds she had in that chamber, because in that moment, she knew exactly what happened, and she did not believe everybody was going to make it out of that house alive. That sends chills down my spine. How do you tell someone, a father, to go search from top to bottom? This house is huge, multiple floors. And instead, he goes directly down into the basement, into a back cellar area, and instantly finds her. And I'm a big person on energy. And that's why I find Linda Arnt's interviews so moving. And I believe it because she was there. She knows what the energy was like. She knows, she saw it for herself. She played it out in real time. And for that time, the time lapse when they were supposed to contact for the ransom note came and passed. What it seems to me is John was hoping that someone else would find JonBonét, but they didn't. Apparently, they didn't do the search. The cops didn't come in. They didn't have many people there. It was just Linda. So it seemed like too much time passed, and this was my guess, too much time passed, so he knew he had to find JonBonét himself, and bring her up. And then
Well,
Patsy would come in and let out this shriek. But the problem is, they all huddled over her body. They all touched her body. And then they took a blanket from the couch and covered JonBonét's body with it. But these are going to be issues as we move along because of DNA. Go ahead, Trenda.
Well, to kind of play devil's advocate here, there was one other officer there. I can't think of his name. I should have wrote it down, but I didn't. They did, in fact, do kind of a small search of the home, but he ended up stopping at the door that led to the room where JonBonét was, and he did not open that door. They completely bypassed it.
There was a reason why that she wanted to keep them occupied. Like she said, there was I can't remember what it is, Melissa, but she told them to go search for a reason, and it had something to do, I think, with the way that John was acting. Like they were afraid he was going to be a flight risk, right?
Well, as far as I know, it was after JonBonét was found. John was immediately in his office making calls to book a flight. And he claimed he was doing it because he wanted to get out of that house. But yes, in the first called 911, multiple officers did show up and a search was executed. But from that point on, Linda Art was the only one stationed in the house to wait for the ransom note and things like for the people to do the call.
Yeah.
So give me your guys' opinion so far.
Well, him going straight. Go ahead, Trenda.
So I do agree that him going straight to her is odd, but I'm gonna, kind of finish playing devil's advocate here in this situation, just because I know you love opposing opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that because the officers ended up stopping at that door, do you think it's possible they could have gone up and been like, hey, so ask John or Patsy, one of them, been like, hey, so does this door lead to anywhere? Like, is there anything
as
just
far as
ask
I know, they
questions.
Did.
Okay.
As far as I know, they did. And John, I'll have to refresh myself on this part. John explained that they were storing Christmas wrapping paper or something along those lines in there.
Okay. So they could have very well just not deemed it necessary to go in there.
If there's a child missing and there's a ransom note, you need to go in everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I'm just kind of curious on why the officers didn't, actually open the door and look.
Yep. Me
so
too.
that's kind of where I was leading with this was, do you think it's possible that's a big reason why, let's say John is innocent, that could very well be why he immediately went down into that room, was because it was not previously searched.
But then what would make him, and I'll play devil's advocate right back to you, what would make him, if he knew that there was a room that wasn't searched yet, why wouldn't he go and search it to begin with? I know that if my child was missing, I don't care how big the house is, I'm checking every fucking square inch.
Well, yeah.
I wouldn't leave
absolutely.
no room unturned. Thank you.
Well, absolutely. And I agree fully.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just some food for thought. Like, that could very possibly be why.
So when JonBonét's body was brought up, her wrists were bound. They were above her head. And her throat was clearly signs of ligature marks. Totally indented, unfortunately, because when you die, it would leave the indent there. I don't know what it would be called, but basically like the skin wouldn't puff back out. So like there were deep ligature marks. She was already in rigor mortis, cold. She had two very strange parallel markings, circles. At the time, they didn't know this, but during the autopsy, it would be later revealed that she had a 6-inch skull fracture. So, no, there was no blood. Visibly, you would not be able to see that she had that traumatic head injury. But that was the condition JonBonét was found in. Yes, it does, Shay. Which, okay, let's go back to that ransom note, right? You have time to sit there and write a 3-page ransom note in detail. Unfortunately, the ligature that was used, the garrote, it was a homemade garrote that was used to strangle JonBonét, which was made out of a broken paintbrush of Patsy's and some line. Meaning these people came in, this small foreign fraction, right? Came in, wrote that detailed note, that ransom note, took all that time. They didn't come in with any supplies of their own, used her notepad, used her, stationery, then went up and got JonBonét. And what happened that would then, instead of them walking out a door, okay, and we'll get into the layout of the house in later episodes and how, if this really did happen, how there were so many other access points that they could have just left out. Why? Because JonBonét was on the technically 3rd floor, and her parents were above that on like the 4th floor. Like this was a very big house. Why they would even take JonBonét and go past the main entrances and all these other access points down into the basement makes no sense. Makes no sense whatsoever. But then what would lead you to kill the exact thing that would get you the money? What happened?
Well, good question.
And you went in with no weapons. Everything from the ransom note to the garrote, the homemade garrote, was from the Ramsey's house. Kind of strange.
I'm kind of jumping ahead here.
Jump at.
It did kind of, if from what I saw today, because I did a little bit of, research before we came live. There was supposedly a flashlight found in the living room that
hit your countertop.
On the countertop that John, Burke, and Patsy claimed was not theirs.
Correct. And it was a police, like a hard, heavy police duty flashlight that was sitting on the countertop. And it's in the crime scene photos of, like, when the cops came in and started taking all the pictures. It's sitting right there that nobody can account for. And as we get into JonBonét's autopsy, that 6-inch skull fracture lines up perfectly with if you took that flashlight and cracked her over the head with it. And they did trials. I don't remember if it was 60 Minutes that did the series on the JonBonét, and they took a replica skull, her exact measurements, and they had a kid of Burke's age at that time, handed him that flashlight and asked him to do one good whack. And the fracture it left in that tester skull was almost identical to what was left in JonBonét's skull. Maglite, is that what it's called? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a mag light.
So when they did JonBonét's autopsy and Linda Arndt was there, they explained they assumed she died from ligature, from the garrote and strangulation via ligature. I don't know what it's called. And it was only after they peeled down JonBonét's scalp, the skin, did this huge 6-inch skull fracture show. That's going to be a real issue as we get into potential theories, because that skull fracture occurred, they're most certain, before she was strangled with that ligature. So what could have happened? And we'll play with those theories. But also something they found was trauma, vaginal trauma, which indicates long-term sexual abuse. This wasn't fresh trauma. This wasn't something that just had happened that night. This was long-term, something that has been happening. And what we do know from JonBonét's medical records is that she did go to the doctor many times from UTIs, but that's all we know.
See, as far as Bert goes, I don't necessarily, and I know we're kind of getting into theories right now. I don't necessarily think he killed her, but I do know that I can't remember her name, but someone stated that there was a history of Burke hitting JonBonét.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that kind of, that's where the pineapple comes into play. It is presumed that JonBonét had, some of the pineapple before the blow to her head came about.
The last thing that was in her digestive tract was undigested pineapple. But if you guys remember, JonBonét apparently fell asleep on the car ride home, and John carried her to her room. So they found the bowl of pineapple and milk on the countertop still when they went in that morning. And there was a glass too. And it had Patsy's fingerprints and it had Burke's fingerprints. But pineapple was in JonBonét's tract. Why would pineapple be in her digestive tract if she was sleeping at the time?
Oh, absolutely, Shay. Like, absolutely. No, like I said, I'm not saying that because I don't believe he killed her. By no means do I believe he killed her. What I was getting at with that was I do believe it's possible that he hit her over the head.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be, there was one, I don't know, I can't remember the full story behind it. It was just kind of a theory I had heard, was that she had woke up to go to the bathroom, saw the pineapple, took a piece or two of it. It's theorized that Bert got upset and hit her over the head.
Mm-hmm. That she ran down. She may have gotten up to pee,
Mm-hmm.
and JonBonét had a very long history of bedwetting. But
Yes.
she had gone down. Burke was eating the pineapple. The reason why her fingerprints wouldn't have been on that bowl was because she just picked a piece out and probably like popped it in her mouth like na 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 na, and Burke may have taken that flashlight and hit her over the head. Now, granted, hey, truth or dare, granted, that 6-inch skull fracture, it would have knocked her out. It may have knocked her out to the point, to an untrained eye, she would have appeared to be dead. They don't know for certain, but they know that she most likely would have been unconscious, and if not immediately, like shortly after. So I think that the garrote and everything was staged. I mean, there's many theories that we know that Patsy was getting frustrated with JonBonét's bedwetting. Every night she would have to go in and change the beds. Whether she was frustrated with JonBonét, they had to get up early to go and catch their flights. They were going away, and they got into some type of scuffle to where JonBonét ended up hitting her head on the bathtub. There's many theories. Or like Trenda said, all we do know though is she went down and she had a piece of that pineapple. We know that for certain. And I don't know what exactly happened, whether it was Burke, whether it was what, but I think that they may believe that she was dead already, and that the garrote and everything was staged. Little do they know that she was still alive at the time. So
To kind of point out another odd thing, I just remembered this. So Patsy, when the police got there that morning, she was wearing the same clothes that she had worn the night before.
correct.
So they don't even know if she had actually gone to bed. When questioned about it, she said that she had taken the clothes off, put them along on the side of the bathtub, went to bed, got up that morning, threw the same clothes on that she was previously wearing, and then just went downstairs.
She was in her party outfit. They had just returned from that party. When the cops showed up, she was still in that same outfit. And like Trenda said, she claimed she took the outfit off, laid it on the floor, put her pajamas on, and then first thing in the morning, before you even wake up to get your coffee, you put that party dress back on. You put those stockings back on before you even get your coffee, and you're about to pack for the day. Why would you put that outfit back on? Very, very strange. Unless she never went to bed. Exactly. That makes no sense. Right. Now, you guys also have to remember that Burke was apparently asleep the entire time. Yet on that 911 audio, and we'll get into that, in the next episode, you will clearly, distinctly hear a third voice. Can we know for certain it was Burke? No, we cannot. We could only account for 3 people being in that house and 3 voices coming through the call. But the third voice was a high-pitched voice, aka a child. And when you watch the 20-year anniversary episode of Dr. Phil, when he interviews Burke, Burke says that his parents told him to stay in his room. And he remembers he was laying in the dark and the cops came in and shined a flashlight. That tells you right there how good of a search they did. Because really, they should have been turning the lights on and making sure JonBonét was not in the closet, underneath his bed, nothing. And JonBonét and Burke had an entire floor to themselves. Like, don't be mistaken. It wasn't just like a little room. They had an entire floor of their own. But apparently, he was in the dark, laying in bed, and the cop just shined the flashlight, and that was it. Well, which is it? Was he asleep or was he awake? I'll have to look those specifics up, Shauna. I think I actually have it. Let me check.
Well, and another odd thing that I ended up writing down. So they believe the murder took place sometime between midnight and 2 a.m. Around 2 a.m., a neighbor hears, quote, one loud, incredible scream.
And Patsy says she was probably in bed by 10:30 when they got home. And JonBonét had last been seen in her bed. Okay, Rose Gold, I love you. Yeah, I don't know the specific time. Yes, okay. So now if you go into the basement, here comes the intruder theory. It had just snowed. Okay? And in the basement, when they were going through and looking, now that they know that this was now a murder, they see that the basement window was open and it was broke. And right below the window was a suitcase. That is when the entire intruder theory came into place. But there were no footprints in the snow. If someone went around the house and broke the glass, there would be footprints leading up to it. Number one. Number two, this was a basement window, so you'd have to hop down into like the little window crevice and break it and slide in. And when I say it's small, it was small. But in John's testimony, he explained that he had broken that window earlier on. And there were cobwebs where that window is. If someone broke that window and slid in, there would be no cobwebs because you'd take it down with you. But there were but there's cobwebs going over where that window is, meaning nobody went through it. And then we'll have to, in that another episode, we'll have to get into the entire intruder theory, because there was this investigator that he physically went through the window, displayed it, went through all this stuff in great detail, but I'm still not convinced of the intruder theory. Yeah, the dust was on the windowsill undisturbed. Well, when did that dust accumulate? And yes, the glass was broken from the inside out, not the outside in. Nope. And no snow footprints in the basement. Oh no, Amber, hold on. I have to scroll up. I remember people saying that it can be heard someone in the background of the call yelling, "What did you do?" Correct. That's after she thinks the call is hung up. But I'm saving that for when the next episode, when I could play it and you could clearly hear it. But you can hear Patsy say, "What did you do?" Granted, yeah, that's true, Katie K. There is barely any snow, but enough to where I know when I walk through snow, even the little bit of dirt up under my shoes becomes a wet, slushy mess, to where if I'm climbing in through the windowsills and hopping down, you're bound to leave a mark. You're bound to have that dirty little wet mark. No, geez. Not tonight, Trent. So then basically it becomes the parents go on the news. Okay, ready? John and Patsy decline a formal police interview. The police wanted to get them to come in and give their statement, but they didn't. But you know what they did do first? They did a media interview. John and Patsy did a fucking media interview before they did a fucking police interview.
Well, they did their very first media interview was on January 1st, the very next day after JonBonét was buried.
Yep. And when we go through those interviews in the later episodes, Patsy is definitely on some type of under the influence of something, I'm assuming anxiety pills. And she's talking very slow and very slurred. And she's urging the public to watch your babies and keep them close because there's a killer on the loose. But we'll get into, and I look forward because I love body language analysis, and we'll get into reading the body language analysis of those interviews because it's as if Patsy almost started saying a little too much and John would interrupt her and finish for her. Hey, Christy. No. They couldn't even get them to do the interviews, Amber, let alone a polygraph. But they did start doing the handwriting analysis of the ransom note. And there's a lot of contradictions left and right. But the ransom note has so many similarities to Patsy's handwriting. When
There was over 200 similarities.
Over 200 similarities. And like I said to you guys earlier, Patsy had actually taken a handwriting course in college. So words like attaché with the little accents above it, the normal person wouldn't use. That's just true. A normal person wouldn't use that often. But very strange that an intruder leaving a ransom note would leave those details and have these specifics. The way she would write her A's, they took her past handwritings and compare each letter to letter to letter, and it was uncanny. And we'll pull those screenshots up so you could see it yourself. And it's just, it looks, now a lot of people theorized it was Patsy who indeed wrote it, and she wrote with her left hand because she was a righty and disguised it. But the way that that ransom note is written is as if someone else was saying what to write and someone was just writing it down. I'll have to remember how exactly they explained the way they're able to determine that. Like these people who analyze these things, they're able to determine a lot. Just from a simple note, they're able to determine like what's being written was being dictated to write, as if John may have been saying the things out loud and Patsy was sitting there writing it. And it would make sense. Listen, they were high standing in society. What if an accident did happen with Burke? Their option would be to lose not only one child, to lose both children. And then you would also deal with the public scrutiny, okay? They would be deemed the murder family in their little community that they cared so much about. They cared very much about their standing, but they also were a very, very wealthy family. And I can't wait to get into the district attorneys and how this case was handled or not handled, because it's actually very, very disgusting. But yeah, I don't want to get too much into that because that's the later part of it.
Well, and yeah, I'm excited to get into that too, because not to bring up, Chris Watts Island, because Lord knows, like,
Don't say it.
I want to stay far, far away. But the way Colorado handles cases, Yeah, I'm not impressed to say the least.
It was handled horribly.
Yes.
The grand jury voted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey, but they didn't. The district attorney decided to not listen to the fucking grand jury and said that there wasn't enough evidence. And like I said, we'll fall down that hole later when it comes to DNA, when it comes to when they were eventually exonerated, which I am so pissed about. But yeah, I don't even know what to say.
I'm really excited to get into a lot of different aspects of this case. I really am.
There's a lot.
I think what I'm most excited for is to get into debunking the different suspects.
There were a lot of suspects. Or how about Jean Claus, who a school teacher, literally came forward and admitted to murdering JonBonét. And his wallet on his person had photos of JonBonét. It was all over media. JonBonét's killer. He admitted to killing her, only for authorities to prove he wasn't there. He was oh my God, was that my hair? It just freaked me out. I thought it was a bug. Oh, that freaked me out. Evidence.
Oh, I can't laugh. Don't make me laugh.
I'm sorry. Like, my hair fell and I swear I thought it was a spider. But evidence proved that he wasn't. And I remember when that happened, because I remember, like, even though I was young, I remember, like, the uproar that media had about it and people talking about it, and then it being such a letdown. Like, the fact that someone would admit to a murder that didn't do it, and he was a school teacher.
Yeah. There's just, oh my God, there's so many sick people out there. I heard that there was actually a couple people that came forward claiming that they murdered her.
And then there was Santa Claus.
Yep.
Literal
Read about that one too.
And do you know about the man that was buried with a jar of sparkles JonBonét gave him?
I did not.
We'll get it.
Wow.
We'll get into that whole thing another night. But
see, and I think we need to cover, just do an entire live covering child pageants.
Absolutely. Inappropriate. Listen, I understand that Patsy had, I remember, what was she missed something in a pageant. And so she wants her daughter to follow footsteps. But this was a very, very, very big theory in the case that a sick man was following her pageants. That is how he potentially found JonBonét, because they had her dressed up in little skimpy swimsuits, makeup to the nines. Thank you, MK. Makeup to the nines, hair full. She looked like a woman, not a 6-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trent. Good night. Thank you. That's okay. Thank you, though.
I don't necessarily think it was the brother. But I think it, as of right now, my opinion could change, and it probably will change a million times while we're going through everything. If Burke, in fact, did have something to do with it, I think it was accidental on his part and a cover-up by the parents.
I agree.
And that's just a big if.
I think that when we get into JonBonét's autopsy and we start to go through the trauma, the vaginal trauma, I think people are going to realize there's more to this story. And then what Brittany is going to take us down with that rabbit hole is the connections that John has. And I think that there is a good chance that JonBonét was being trafficked. And I know many people don't want to hear that. And all I ask is to keep an open mind. I'm not saying that that is what happened, but if you take the evidence and as we go through it and I present it, you'll be able to realize that there's something going on. Now, he was of good standing. He had a lot of money. Unfortunately, these are the elements of what makes these types of situations happen. And how do you know that she wasn't somewhat being used within a small circle? When you think traffic, you don't have to think on the streets being transported all across the country. No. It could be just a couple of people, you know, and keeping things close at home. All I know is that there was some sort, and again, we'll go through Linda Arndt's interview, who was there for the autopsy, and she will explain to you what she saw and what it was evidence of. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I believe it, Amber. I fully believe it.
Yeah, Shay, absolutely.
It's a huge issue, and geez, I could take you down some rabbit holes on that one too.
Yep. But I figured maybe the next episode we will go into the 911 call, pull up the ransom note, do the handwriting analysis and stuff. Then we could go into JonBonét's autopsy for the following episode. Then the DNA or the lack of DNA. Then you could go into the fucking traces that John and where Brittany does her forte of these underground sexual rings and sex trafficking and the ties that John Ramsey actually has to all of it. And then the suspects, so like basically I figured that's how we could break down each episode by episode, focusing because there's a lot. Like, you guys, we skimmed over and that wasn't any notes, that was just like the basis. But when I say each individual part has so much, down to the underwear she was wearing, there is a lot that goes into this case, and it's something that you really have to dedicate. So I'm really excited to go further into this with you, Chanda, and get all those tiny details, because in order to make a well-rounded opinion or theory, you have to know all those details.
Oh, absolutely. And then we can wrap it all up with theories, because theories are my favorite.
My favorite part. Oh, you're welcome, Katie K. Yeah, so is there anything else that you wanted to discuss?
Probably not tonight, just because my voice is about to give out.
Okay.
But I am super excited to continue covering this, and I'm just ecstatic. This is a really interesting case, and I don't even I'm really glad tonight just turned out to be kind of like a basis and summarizing, because there's so much I didn't even know where to start. So
you can't.
Really
You can't. You really can't. You got to just pick one thing, like I said, like the note, and there's a million one things you could do with the note, and then the next thing, there's a million one things. There's so much.
Oh, definitely.
But I'm excited because, like I said, this was one of the first rabbit holes I went down in regards to true crime cases, and I'm going down it again and getting to hear the opinions. Oh, it's okay, Amber. I'll hop on for a little bit after. It's not a big deal. But thank you. You're very kind. But yeah, so because like this week is going to be crazy packed. Obviously, we have the holidays. but maybe the following week, like the first week in January. Well, actually, no, you know what I mean? Like the end of December or first week
Yeah.
of January, we could aim to do episode 2.
That sounds good for me.
Okay.
I've got the next 2 weeks. Kids aren't in school, so I've got plenty of time.
Oh, I love it. Awesome.
Besides the holidays, of course, but it's only
Right.
2 days.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody coming here. Do not forget, no matter which live you're on, Moral Transgressions or mine, try to hop over to the other one, give a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm. So thank you, each and every one of you. We look forward to diving more deep into everything with you guys and hearing your theories, because like Trenda said, that's my favorite part, hearing the theories. Okay, so we're good? I think we're good. Brittany,
Yes.
I don't think Brittany's coming back on. she never says goodbye. She just eventually drops off until she just doesn't come back on anymore. That's like Brittany.
All right. Well, thank you all and have a good night, and I will be catching up with you later, Melissa.
Yes, we will see you guys for episode 2. Spread some peace, love, and positivity, everybody. I love you all. Mwah. Namaste.